Hello, everyone. Welcome to Triangle Be Well, the Tribe of Well TV show. I'm in the studio today with our esteemed producer, Amnon Nisan. Hello, Amnon.
Hello. What's happening, Howard?
Not much. I'm glad
Missed
you.
you last week.
Yeah, I missed you
A lot of
too.
people missed you.
Oh, I missed all of them.
Yeah.
I missed all of them. Um, yeah, it's good to know that you're unflappable. I showed up late with a surprise guest and wearing a blue shirt that we had to cover up with red, and you are still smiling. So
Now, what do you want me to do?
well, not that. So I'm happy. I'm happy you're you.
That's okay.
And special surprise today. We were going to talk about tripwires part 3, but we're going to put that off because, as I mentioned, I have a guest today. In joining me in the studio is Mark Leuchten.
Hello?
And Mark is here because, as it says artist, right, under his name. I don't know if you can see that yet, but there he goes. Mark Leuchten, artist, which he is. He's also a gardener, and he has been my friend and mentor for many years, for many topics. And we just have conversations that stay with me and inform my thinking. And so he and his wife Patty are down visiting for a couple of days from Princeton. So we thought, let's get in the studio together and see what happened. So we had a brief conversation yesterday about what we were going to talk about, and what we came up with was, let's not just. I don't know what it is. You have a sense, and sort of intuitively in the moment, we're going to have this conversation. So surprise, surprise, I don't know what today's show is about yet. So let's have some fun.
Sounds good. Fun is good.
So what do you got?
I got this idea yesterday what to talk about, and I didn't practice like how it was going to be said, but I have a basic outline of about a sentence, and I'd like to start there.
Perfect.
So I want to put out the notion, the idea that everything is one, and that's a truth that I think most of us know as a truth, that there's oneness is the truth of existence, unity. And so it's hard to go from that point to bringing that into my life in a real way. But I think it's something that we should aspire to, because what do we do when we're trying to live a good life, or just in alignment with the basic truth of things? We try to find out, okay, what is true? And then we adjust our behavior according to that. Well, why don't we start with the biggest truth there is, and try to align with that? Now, what would that look like? And so I posed that to myself. Well, how? So years ago, I thought, well, I couldn't use this language that I have, because that's filled with distinctions. And aren't distinctions all meaningless in given that one truth of everything being just one thing? So I got kind of stuck there. I was thinking, well, I'd have to make up my own language, and I actually started writing down some characters and trying to give them meaning. That didn't go real far. So the idea came up. I write in my journal on a daily basis, and that idea came up with a little more success recently, in terms of how I would approach that truth and that alignment with everything. And so that's what I want to start with.
Okay, cool. So I want to see if I can unpack it a little bit for myself, because I've read in sort of spiritual texts and sources like everything is one. There's a unity, and that all difference is illusion, and I find that really hard to believe. And there's times I find it harder to believe than others, and sometimes I don't know, like, is it my mind that understands this? Like I understand it intellectually, but it doesn't feel true, or like intellectually is where I make all the distinctions, and my heart knows it's true. So like even before I'm able to follow you to what it looks like, um, I guess I'm looking for some sort of experiential validation that feels more real than just reading it and hearing it from people I admire. So I wonder if you struggle with that, or if you have kind of an evolution of being comfortable with the idea.
Yeah, I guess it's something that I've come to through yoga and meditation as and as far as experiential, you sort of just merge and you have in your calmest, most elevated thoughts, it just makes sense. But when you take it apart a little bit, you see, okay, well, where are the edges of things? Where's the edge? So that's what brought me to this idea is where's the edge between myself and and God? And where what are the edges? And so when you talk about self, like is your skin an edge? And that doesn't make any sense to me that we'd be so finite as to define ourselves as skin because we're so much more than that. We're sensing. So where are the edges to ourself? And the more I tried to define that, the larger that that edge got pushed away. And so as far as an experiential feeling about that, in when you're thinking, where do your thoughts originate? Or is it all just a physical universe? And if it is, then where do I draw? Where are the edges? So if it's hard for me to describe that besides saying, well, that's a basic truth. If you're asking me how that's a basic truth,
Hmm.
I'm not. That's a tough one. I mean, how to explain that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's like asking someone to describe how a peach tastes. Just right, you've spent many years in the yoga studio on the meditation mat, kind of having experiences.
Yeah,
And
I don't want to, end it there though. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not going to say because I'm on TV now, and I'm not going to say if you don't get it, we're done here. It's not like I have a peach, I'm tasting it, but sorry.
yeah,
I want you to come with me that far, and then we can go somewhere with that.
uh-huh. Okay. Um, yeah, so the concept of the edge, like I think about like bodies of water, right? Like when does the river become the ocean, or when does the rain become the pond? So I can see intellectually there's a you can make distinctions, but when you examine them closely, they're kind of meaningless, and that there's a dynamic. Their distinctions make sense in a snapshot, but they don't make sense dynamically in a flow. And I guess I have had moments of sort of more or less, if not identification with, like, I'm looking at the microphones in front of us, like to say that I am the microphone or I am the monitor, but at least with other people or other sentient beings, um, a sense that there is at some higher level a connection.
Yeah, the whole idea of us being separate is it doesn't make any sense to me. The like this that we're the physical matter in terms of um, the edges of it. It's all energy flowing. It's dense energy. It's freeing energy. Or, but so, you know, where could you identify an edge? And I would challenge you to that.
Uh-huh. Right, I don't know. Yeah, no, it's a good question. So you're almost saying that it doesn't, you can get to it through these sort of esoteric means, at least esoteric in the West, of sitting, of yoga, of mystical experiences, but you can also just intuit it
Yes,
just by kind of deconditioning ourselves that maybe,
yes,
that maybe everything that I think convinces me that I'm separate is actually the programming.
yes,
So that I don't have to go to effort to understand this idea of unity. I need just to strip away so that that my
that's,
authentic self understands this,
yes,
right? That the cells of my body that slough off and then become the ground that then grows my food understand this already.
that's
Something like
very
that.
much, that's the way you would get there. That's the way I've gotten everywhere, is challenging the cultural programming that I've received, and it's like, wait, that's not true. And the more I strip away, the the closer I get to things that make sense and experientially, then they're confirmed uh, in my life. And so, unity being the basic condition of everything starts to just prove itself, you know, constantly.
Hmm. So you began the conversation by posing like the question, what is this understanding slash revelation slash intuition mean for our everyday lives? And a bunch of things are coming to me. One of them is that that's a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
You know what I mean by that?
Yes. Well, yes. So the responsibility, and it's complete. It's, you have responsibility for everything that happens anywhere, everywhere, and that is big. So you found that right away, the responsibility. But with responsibility comes control. So you also then take control of everything that happens. And when there are no edges to anything, then you see how that makes sense. That's the only way that it makes sense. And then you become the creator of everything that happens to you in your life. And that's kind of the starting point of living uh, a full life. Is when you take that responsibility and that control. Um, and it's not easy because we're so used to blaming and seeing distinctions, and yet it's where we all have to go uh, to get where we need to go, which is aligning ourselves with the truth of things, or else we're living in a under false premises, and we're never going to get anywhere with false information and false premises.
It's almost like we're driving here on 64 and there are lines on the road, and I could ignore them and I'd probably like go off, hit the guardrail, hit the median, hit other cars, um, because I have my own map of reality that I've superimposed or replaced the other one with. But there's reality out there, and knowing what it is allows me to navigate safely and successfully.
Yes, and so many people are navigating their lives, hitting the side, the guardrails, and having accidents, and they're not aligning with the truth of things and relaxing. And another big truth is that life is eternal, and that is really hard. People can hear that, but not believing that, and that's another one that's really good to believe and to live by, and because then everything just smooths out. And so these glimpses of the bigger truths just make life so much easier and more navigable.
So when you say life is eternal, do you mean something like the thing that I identify as me, the consciousness, is eternal, is never going to die, is not the same as my physical body.
Yes.
So, I can accept that as a theory, right? I don't have direct proof of that. I can accept as a theory that with, if there's oneness, that I have some degree of control over everything, although I'm not, again, it feels like there's a bit of a leap of faith there. And so my question is, when I can't prove it, when I can't do a double-blind, randomized control trial, and prove it to myself scientifically, then the question is, well, what are the consequences of that belief? So for you, what are the consequences of believing that there, in this unity, that you do have control / responsibility for everything that happens in your life, and that you are an eternal being?
Um, well, so the other, let me jump around that just a little bit and say that where we have to all go to understand these things is again toward the truth of unity, and how you get that is to stop splitting things into pieces and then trying to fit them all together, because that's a very split apart thing that ultimately is what we've ended up with as our world now, and it's not going to lead anywhere except continually splitting and not making sense anymore. So what I want to propose also as a big idea is where we need to go in the future is away from intellectual analytical thinking toward a place of feeling, and I think there's the answers are in that. So I think I tried to answer your question with that.
Hmm.
Does that?
Yeah, well, it reminds me of a lot of the health writing I've done, especially with T. Colin Campbell, around holism, and that when we live in this illusion that everything is separate and everything is divisible and everything is discrete and concrete, then there's too many moving parts for us to handle, and so we become control freaks, right? And
Yeah,
we
that's the world today, isn't it? I mean, it's crazy. What a crazy world, and we're not gonna, and we're still looking for science to rescue us, and it's not going to. It's going to keep going this way until we get to the feeling of things, because look at the national discourse, how nitpicky everything is, and scrutinized and analyzed, and there's no healing energy in that. It's all distinctions, and it's going further and further from what I brought in as a basic truth, which is it's all one. And so experientially, when you start living according to these things, these truths, what I call them, because I just know they are from my feeling. It's not something that I'm looking to prove to anybody, because once you start doing that, you go into the scientific mode of proof that we're used to. This is all new. It's not new language, but it's returning to some of the ancient traditions in many ways. Some of the old languages, they knew this earlier on, and we've just gotten away from that completely.
Yeah. Well,
But we're looking for meaning in our lives, because it's gotten so scattered and meaningless. When you take things apart, you're killing them, and they're making less and less meaning rather than more. We think we're getting lots of information, but how do you put it back together? And you do that by restoring the soul of everything, and getting back to that basic truth of the unity. And the feeling, you get back to like, it's okay, this heart-centered feeling. And the other big basic truth that I can put out there is that the the reason for everything, the basic truth of everything is love. Love is the foundational principle of everything, and who could dispute that? It's like if you ever ask a question why, love is the answer every single time. You just have to get back to that. You have to strip away all the little pieces, the wreckage that has caused the question in the first place. That's an obvious statement if you've experienced and remembered life at its most profound and deepest place, in your life. It's the answer.
Hmm. Now that sounds really foreign in this culture, right? Where most people I know are not living that way at that level, and that that love is the hallmark moment. It's the infatuation before marriage. Um, it's limited to a very small number of relationships. How do we navigate back to that? And I'm thinking in terms of the folks that I'm helping and communicating with around their own personal health, right? So if you understand, it's like if you're operating according to the actual rules of the universe, of unity and love, then you wouldn't be like eating the way Americans eat. You wouldn't be moving your body like Americans move their bodies. You wouldn't be consuming the way Americans consume. So what does it look like? How does it look different from the outside to be operating more according to unity and love than whatever it is we've replaced it with?
Well, of course, we haven't replaced it, and it's still uh, fully in operation. There's nothing that is happening now that's uh, outside of those truths. I mean, it's still all connected, and it's still the reason for everything is love. So we just have to, you know, you could instantly know that, and then everything would look different, and everything would start healing around you, and that's how quickly it would happen. You just all of a sudden you're coming into alignment, and every once in a while we do. We understand in a crisis, and what does crisis do? It brings us back to be able, gives us another chance. It's love in action, and it's so powerful that there's never going to be anything that destroys that fabric, because the whole thing is a fabric of love. So you cannot escape it. You know, everything has a reason for it happening, and it's always love.
Yeah, but I feel like in order to go to love, I have to give up being right.
Uh,
You
that's
know,
hard for you, Howie. I know that.
it sure is. I mean, because I'm an advocate for health in my field, and so I critique society, I critique business, I critique politics, I critique media, and I look and I see things that are wrong and people who are wrong and institutions that are um, malignant and systems that are corrupt, and it feels very risky for me to say, well, the reason for all of this is love, because then I feel like I would lose my my flaming sword.
Don't you want to put that down anyway?
Well,
I mean, it's like if you pull back, how it's you can see these things. It's if you pull back and you see humanity on the surface of the earth, and with some perspective on time, and how, at one point not too long ago, I think I read that we were about 6,000 humans on the earth, after the ice age or whatever, and then how we've multiplied and we're squirming around, and I mean, it's all just this process of becoming better and better and getting it right. So we can't, as an experiment, you can't, it can't go wrong. What's the worst that can happen? Uh,
Well,
I mean,
I don't
there's
know.
suffering, and that's the worst that can happen, and it happens. But you're safe in that because that's learning too. And it's really the fear of these things is the worst part. Uh, but but again, if you knew that life is eternal, it takes a lot of the fear away. Um, you know, and if you knew that it's all for a good reason, it all just shifts right from that thought.
Mhm. Well, I've heard people talk about, like, this reminds me a little bit of the philosopher John Rawls, theory of justice, which is to say, if you want to know whether a political system or a social system is just, then the thought experiment is imagine that you're randomly placed into that system, and you could be, the king, the prime minister, the peasant, the untouchable. Like, if you're okay being any of those, then you know the system is just. And so that, if there is a unity, then I'm not just me, right? So I'm also the person who looks to me very much like they're suffering, right? And I kind of want the system to change to alleviate that suffering.
But so how do you? What's the best way to change that system? Is it by like some activity or getting a petition, or like wouldn't it make more sense? Like you're trying to change the U.S. government, say. How would
Right.
you go about that? It's,
Vote for Trump.
yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that would change the. Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm gonna stay away from that one.
Yeah. Well, it's like like, if the problem is this, um, we have all these zillions of pieces, these discrete bits in play, and we're just trying to figure out which are the four important things that we can wrap our heads around, and we're going to call those the facts, and we're going to ignore everything else. And I see this a lot in health and nutrition, where people will say, well, the most important, eat blueberries because they have anthocyanins, eat this, or stay away from carbs, and we have these big blanket generalizations that completely deny the complexity of food. And then that leads us to feel like, well, we need to control nature because everything's a wild, unpredictable, unfriendly force. And we're these, naked apes alone in the world, and all we can do is control it. If that got us into this mess, then more of that thinking isn't going to get us out of it, right? So that if I take a oppositional, if I think, okay, unity is the answer, and I'm going to frigging argue with everyone who doesn't agree with me, then I'm kind of stuck, aren't I?
Yeah, that's where it comes to the feeling, and um, arguing. You have to really respect your own feeling. That has to be primary, you know, um, and pay attention to that, and pay attention to the thoughts that are creating that feeling, and know that it's the the false thoughts are going to bring bad feelings, and the true thoughts are going to feel good. And when you're not in alignment with some of these basic truths, and you're arguing, and you're going to feel lousy, and you really have to. That's kind of the immediate thing that you do is just watch your feeling and watch your thoughts, and you figure things out on that basic level, because that's our closest laboratory, is our own physical being. That's where we really feel things, and that's where our power lies, is in that, the central nervous system, and our own ability to look at our thoughts. That's self-awareness, and that's consciousness is really what we're talking about here. So being an actor in the world and trying to create change through action is really using a very small part of your power, a very small percentage. Your real power is in the way you think, and you follow when your feeling. Your feeling is your guide to the truth of that thinking.
Mm. So I'm a big fan of like evolutionary psychology and the idea that like every animal, excepting humans, every animal has a very simple programming, right? They're programmed to seek pleasure, to avoid pain, to conserve energy, so that they can successfully survive and reproduce. And so for animals, there's no contradiction between pleasure and duty, right? If something feels good to the animal, then that's exactly what the animal should be doing. If something tastes good to the animal, then the animal, should be eating it or drinking it.
I think that's the same for humans.
Well, yeah, that's the
I
like
mean,
we
if it feels good, then why wouldn't you do it? Because there's why.
right. Well, we're scared of feeling good, aren't we? We think we're going to pay for it later, and in this society, I mean,
Well,
look at the ways in which we try to feel good, through
yeah, it's all twisted. We're taught that feeling good is bad, and then it's all messed up. But if you get back to, basics, uh, when you eat something that's not good for you but tastes good, there's a little bit of pleasure in that and more pain, and so you learn from that. But well, if you're in an elevated place where you're very self-aware, you know how to make choices, healthy choices, not based on pain relief, but you've healed a lot of your pain, and you're making choices according to what really feels good, what really you know helps you, and you then it's all just you're free to choose. Well, I'm going to have this. I know I'm going to suffer for it later, but that's different than unconsciously going for things.
Hmm. So it's almost like you're saying that taking action on the world, it's almost like I saw someone do robotic surgery where their hands are here and then the instruments are somewhere else, and there's a certain clumsiness to it, right? But at least there's connection. But that if the only trustworthy and information or evidence or feedback we really have is like inside us, and as my friend Josh says, like this precious tiny little clump of atoms that we're given responsibility for, right?
Yes.
Like at the same time, yes, we're everything and there's unity, and at the same time, realistically, like this.
That's where our power is, and that not on, our responsibility extends everywhere because we're taking more of that on as we begin to feel our power, because it's all a perception anyway. We're interpreting everything that happens around us, so we're responsible for that. So yeah, that clump in the center is where our power is. So why would you spend your time? Like, I see people arguing about the stories they see in the news as if they know what actually happened behind those stories. And they're using their emotional energy to get like into these stories that are so far from any power that they have. It's just all it is depletion, because they don't know the context of any of those stories, and yet they spend all their emotional time on this is just, this is right, this is wrong, and they lose their power. They lose their connection with their self, where all their power is, and then therefore your control in the world, and then you're just like this meaningless little part that's going to die. I mean, that's kind of sad.
Well, it's funny because not only do I not know the context and the stories behind things I read on the news, I don't really know the context and the stories behind the arguments I have with my loved ones. You, you know, it's like oh yeah, I know what they're thinking.
But you do know your own feelings, and you can get to the context of your own feelings, because that's a rich place. That, you know, how you're influenced by your past and your triggers and all that. You can get through that to a clear place of, where you can be clear about your role in things and your compassion and your. Uh, so again, it all returns to this self that is very close to you and yet then extends to everything once you start seeing that you are creating all of these situations for your own learning, and the difficulties are all to help you grow, and you're attracting them as a learning process.
Kirby
Kirby.
is saying, if it feels good, why wouldn't you do it? Because eating nothing but candy bars found at the checkout at the Pine Tree air freshener store results in empty calories. And Kirby adds, nice point Mark made. If you aren't eating out of pain, eating things to cure pain, like candy bars, you will make good choices.
Yeah, I guess what we eat is it's at the top of a very large mountain. That choice in the moment isn't out of context. And yes, we have a culture, a society of humans that is involved in this great learning, right? Like I like how you contextualize
Yes.
life. Like every mistake we make, every war, every genocide, everything is like, that didn't go well. Let's try.
That's it. And
Let's-
what is everything that happens to you negatively or really bad? How does that result? Well, it depends how you handle it. If you dwell on it, and if you keep talking about it and tell all your friends and just use that as an excuse to not move forward, it doesn't go well. But ultimately, the bigger things in history, you can do it in your own life by saying, well, what did I learn from that? And then when you get beyond it, you say, look at all these gifts of learning and betterment that I got from that bad experience. It happened, that's a very common thing. So then you can start approaching things that way when you see them coming as bad. You can say, oh, what's this going to teach me? And it just softens it. So there's no suffering in that at all. It's just, thank you for this. I'm going to, grow from this. And that gratitude for that experience, it's no longer suffering. It's like it's all this positive thing. Now, I'm not saying, I can completely do that in the moment. It takes some thinking about. But if you look at, the worst things that happen to your life and how you turn them around, look at all the stories of successful people. They go to this. I was in this way, and that's where that's what life. That's why we're here, is to learn at that. That just quickens the learning. If it's easy, then you're just kind of. Well, I didn't want to get off of Kirby's thought so quickly, but I wanted to take that. Kirby is a caller that called in, or
In the chat.
in the chat. And was that the first question that he answered, or himself?
Well,
Like-
I mean, said that if it feels good, why wouldn't you do it?
Because it would make.
answering.
Oh, he's answering it. Oh, well, yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, because once you can heal the pain that's behind those things, and part of the healing of these things is to sort of trust the healing energy, not just mask the symptoms continuously, which is what we do with our medicine, our system of medicine. It's like, oh, kill that, or cut that off, or do, rather than looking deeper into why this and seeing that it's love. we're cutting ourselves off from the source, and we're not really seeing that there's a reason for everything, and that reason is love.
All right. Well, I mean, it's a great distinction around how I choose the foods I eat. So there's a lot of foods out there. Most of the foods, the SKUs in the supermarket, the hundreds of thousands of products we can buy are products of this system that has taken resources from the earth as if the earth is not designed to support us. So, we take it fearfully and greedily, we package it up, we fractionate it, we remove half of it, we hyperpalletize it, and then, it's very hard to have that food bless us because of the consciousness that went into
Right.
creating it and marketing it.
And we're living in that time where there's this huge collision between old and new. And so what do you do with it personally? Do you see it as a blessing, or do you see it as a curse that you have to kill in order to move on? It's like you can't change the way everybody eats no matter what you do, right?
Right.
You can't do that. You can change what? How you eat. That's one of the basic things you can control, is what you put in your mouth. Nobody's making that decision for you. And look at all the good foods we have today. It's unbelievable, all the good foods we have today. I mean, and they're so easy to get. What's that a result of? It's the bad foods that were put in our store. That's the result. So what are you going to do? You're going to talk about all those bad foods, or are you going to just eat the good foods and move on?
What do you mean? You say that the good foods are a result of the bad foods?
Because it's a reaction to those bad foods.
Mm.
They're like, look at that crap. Whoa, look at all the new foods that are available that 10, 20, 30 years ago would be really hard to get, but now you can get them in all one place. Like, I love the coconut water that's available now. I mean, you can eat so well now, and you do, Howie. I mean, you're amazing. You fed me dinner last night and lunch today, and I still had to have my coffee and scone this morning, but at least you took me to that place. That was so.
Yeah, but I mean, when folks are addicted to those foods, or using those foods to not do what you're suggesting, to not use our own feelings, right? So if I'm upset and I'm not curious enough or courageous enough to sit with those feelings, then I'm going to use those other foods to kind of distract myself.
Well,
and mask them.
that's a theory that, I mean, I know you're sympathetic with people and you want everybody to enjoy good health, but you don't have control over the way other people think. I mean, eat or think or do. They're doing their own thing, and I know you want to help people, but that's a tough road. Even educating people, I don't know. You can support other people by being an example to them. But as far as making public policy, or, the further you get from your own power in this, your own control, the more dissipated it is and the less effective it is. So the best thing you can do, self-love, I mean, that's the best thing you can do, because then you have something to give others, but also it's a reason in and of itself to.
I mean, I've got to argue with you. That's not true. Howard can have a bunch of power over people. Howard has power over me. He made me change. And it's not that he kind of like a wishy-washy way did it. I mean, he told me, he said, no, not this. this, but not this, which made a lot of sense. And if you don't try to do what Howard is doing, then you'll never know if you have a lot of power or not. You already gave up the power before you even tried. That's the way I hear you saying that you don't have a power over to change policy, to change other people. I say, yes, you do. It depends on you.
Yeah, it depends on you. Right. So he's so Howie is doing this himself, and then he's so passionate about it, he's influencing other people.
Right. There you
Yeah.
go. Influencing. Power
Yeah.
over. Influencing. That is
Well,
power. To influence other people
Yeah.
is power.
Yeah.
And it's not, I mean,
But
a lot
that's
of
coming
people
from
take power in a negative way. It's
yeah,
not.
no, it's not. But I'm saying it's starting from inside of him,
Mhm.
and it's radiating out.
Right.
That's the power of it. That's
Right.
the influence.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. I'm not saying, but your power starts from inside and not from outside. So as far as if he didn't eat well himself and then tried to tell other people how to eat, it just wouldn't. There would be no
Oh,
power
we
in
can
that.
get into that argument also. I'm not going there because you don't want to go there. But no, the other thing is about doing what you feel like doing. That would be great. Like you have a farm, you have a fence around it. In there, you do whatever you can go there and eat this, you can go here and eat this. But the minute you step out of it, you have a lot of other influences and regulations and laws and stuff that may stop you from doing this thing that feels good and that things that feels good, and they may not be correct, but you have to follow the law. So I mean, a lot of people want to take medical marijuana because they know that it'll help them. You can't. If you were in your own wall, in your own kingdom, so to speak, you could. If you have it growing there and nobody can tell you, let's put it this way.
Mhm.
Yeah, your own wall, and you say, I have my own country in this farm. You can do whatever you want. And then, yes, you can do anything that feels good. You'll do it, and you'll probably do a lot of things good and a lot of things bad, because those powers from outside that tells you what not to do and what to do, some of those are positive, actually, that they protect you from something. But a lot of them are,
You mean the law, the laws that?
yeah, the laws that some people put in place, they put it not because they know, but because they believe. And it's kind of...
Yeah, it changes slowly. So in our lifetime, hopefully it's all getting better.
It's getting better because
Well, individual and action.
change the
Change.
policies.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But when we look at things that have changed really rapidly, like I'm thinking about, gay marriage, which all of us, it seems like there was a cultural shift that took place in the blink of an eye. And all of a sudden it became more or less inevitable after being unthinkable. When I look at like what brought that about, it feels like it was very local. It was within a family. It was within a structure. It was people seeing this person that I love, as opposed to that group marching over there.
Right.
Right. So I think that's the connection between what you're saying is that.
But I don't want to say that no action or no public action is good. It's not. But if it's coming from a powerful place in you, it's just more powerful. If you're acting out of your passion instead of some cause that you're not really
Sure.
that into, the effect is going to be completely different.
Sure.
So I'm always saying, or what I'm saying is you always have to be connected with your power source, which is inside you. And that connection is what determines whether you're powerful anywhere else. So
Well,
your action should be based on being aligned with that truth and that connection. That's
So let's make this about me.
okay.
as, as I
You ready
sometimes
for?
as I sometimes like to do. So, right, I'm in the mix around food, what people should eat. Tangentially involved in writing and talking about food policy. So, and I'm in a plant-based world, which is aligned but not identical with the vegan world. So in the vegan world, which I think you're pretty familiar with, um, the sort of the culture of it, there's definitely a feeling of us and them, right? That it's almost like the people who eat meat are either evil, cruel, or unknowingly participating. So
And then there's the meat eaters who hate the vegans too, and they're always bashing them. Right. So there's that war.
right. So for me, like I can feel my power. I can feel the difference between like the force of my words and the power, the influence they have. If I'm pissed off and I'm writing something about those evil executives at Kraft, or Tyson Chicken or something like that, like I can get a lot of people, angry people, to agree with me. And we see this on Facebook, right? There's like, I can have like, they should have an emotic, the little, instead of just
Emoticon.
like and love, they should have like a mob with burning pitchfork or something, right? Because we're all upset together, but that tends to implode,
Yes.
right? But when I'm speaking lovingly about human potential and assuming the best of other people,
You're in your power at that point.
then I'm in my power.
Yeah, and it not only feels good, and that's how you monitor your power, because and your influence, the strength of your influence. Not that that's the point of influencing other people. It's just a part of it, right? Because we're kind of taught, well, we have to be for the world and contributing to the world, or we're useless. We have to be that martyr out there, sacrificing ourselves for the greater good. That doesn't make sense to me, but yeah. So when you're in your power, just you're just more powerful and a better influence and longer lasting. And it's not this fighting thing that doesn't feel good for you and then doesn't last. Action has to be centered in a certain strength and good feeling, or it doesn't find resonance in the world that's going to be affecting things in a loving and lasting way, and it's just going to agitate things more and split them apart, and then you're getting away from the basic truths that I started with, which is everything is me. This is all my body, and I care about it all, and I'm patient with it because it's eternal, and it's that kind of thing.
Well, and I think that takes a lot of the pressure off the immediate outcome, right? So
Absolutely.
if I'm involved in a legislative issue, there's no way for me to lose as long as I'm in integrity. And
That's it. And if you're feeling good the whole time, then that's just great, because then you have a great life and you're in your integrity and you're having the most powerful positive influence you can. There's nothing to lose that way, because again, you're aligned with the truths, and you can't go wrong that way. You're the way you think, the way you are in the world is all lined up with this great big body and of healing that we're part of.
Yeah. Now, in the one of the programs that I'm helping to lead for helping people make big changes in their lives, and especially around diet and exercise, one of the tools we encourage people to use when they really feel tempted and they're really struggling not to binge and to go back to these foods is a little bit of outrage. or even a lot of outrage that these foods, that I thought was my friend. I thought that Kit Kats were my friend, and Po' Boys and Snickers. Like I had a love affair with them, and it turns out that they've been betraying me all this time. It's like, get pissed off at that as an energy to help you separate.
That's a very good thing to bring up, Howie. Um, it's all fair game. We need anger. That's part of what we have to work with. And being angry can be, very much in alignment with love and with oneness. It's one of our emotions. It's a tool that we're taught is bad. Now, whether at that point of anger we need to go out and try to do something to make change, that's another question. But to feel that anger, to get in touch with that, can be very healing. In fact, that was an essential part of my healing after my divorce. I was divorced when I was young, and I was just all this loving toward my ex, and then my sister and mother helped me to see, well, she did this. You should be angry about that. And I was like, maybe, yeah, actually. And that was an essential part of my healing. So I can see what you're talking about. That can be effective because we have all sorts of things we bring to it from our past, karmically and just from this life with our childhood and all. And there's a lot we're working through in that healing to get clear with our perceptions.
Mm-hmm. So as long as the anger goes through kind of a sine wave, so as an appropriate, measured, proportionate response to whatever it was, as opposed to turning the anger into our persona, our mask, that we then right. We're angry all the time. So if
Yeah.
2 years later I'm eating really healthy and I'm eating edamame and broccoli and brown rice and sweet potatoes and kale, and I'm still cursing the Snickers bar at the checkout lane, then I kind of need to do a reevaluation. Right?
Or you just might have been that angry about it. I don't know. It's it's hard to
Well,
say.
but how do how do I guide myself if the goal is to feel good? Like anger is a kind of tricky like love is a pretty easy emotion to feel good about. Anger is a harder emotion to know whether you're feeling good, because I can be angry at something and it feels delicious.
Right.
And then the next day I'm like, oh, what did I say? What did I do? How I embarrassed myself because it's like I gave into the anger the same way I would give into the Snickers bar.
Well, something that we've lost sight of in our culture is forgiveness of others and of ourselves. It's very important to allow yourself to observe yourself go through all these things and know that it's all part of healing and growing. And so you have to forgive yourself for everything, really. I mean, you get angry and then you see something about yourself and it brings up it's about expanding awareness, consciousness of self, and it's all fine, it's all good. And there is enough love, there's so much love for you in this universe that you can never do anything that ultimately is going to mess everything up. Like there's so much safety net here, and when you put it in context of forever, there's a reason for it all. So everybody, can lighten up and not be so cranky to everybody else for every little thing. Like poor Ryan Lochte. I don't know if I want to bring this up, but
sure, why not? A little current event. So he's the American swimmer who apparently misrepresented a holdup at a gas station in Rio, right?
Yes.
What's wrong with saying he lied?
Yeah, I mean, come on, like, the thing he said, they have such a problem with anyway. I was there in Rio, and I was warned repeatedly about that, and I was woken up 5 a.m. with a woman screaming outside my hotel right on Copacabana. Armed gunmen drove by, stole her purse. It happens all the time, and so he says it happened, and everybody gets all offended. Like, I mean, that's one. My father argued me about
He
that.
should have stuck by his story. The minute he said he
Oh,
lied, that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah, put the pressure. I mean that it was.
Right. Yeah, but I guess the point is like none of us was there, but we're projecting all of our own garbage
Yeah.
onto that situation, and we're right. So we're overreacting.
Yeah.
In,
Yeah,
in,
make-
in a
He
sense.
said he lied. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, but but
He
like
lied.
I mean we have
He got drunk and he lied and he broke
Yeah.
some stuff. He should pay for it. But like
Right.
we're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. It's I don't know.
well I think celebrity culture is another aspect of the division,
Yeah.
right? That God forbid we should see them as complete human beings,
Yeah, right.
that, like
Right.
as complicated as ourselves.
I mean, we want him to spend all that time in the pool, and then be fully mature as an adult. I mean, which one do you want?
Saying the swimming doesn't necessarily lead to
Should have
maturity. in
hired.
life.
Yeah.
Should have hired you as this PR person.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm hearing a few things that I think are really useful for me to just remember and almost make as little mantras. And one of them is like this idea, like there's nothing I could possibly do that was wrong.
Wrong. That makes no sense, right? I mean, that's a judgment right away. Wrong. What does that mean? I mean, does that mean there's a right and a wrong? Okay, so you're splitting. That's a unity. How you can't split. You're wrong. So right away, get rid of it. It doesn't make sense. Now you can understand that. Okay, I'm going to bring this set of terms with me, because they're useful to me. There's right and there's wrong. I'm going to teach my kids right and wrong, but that's getting away from an essential truth, and that's what I'm trying to do. What I brought to this program from the very first time I spoke is, how do I get in touch with the central truth of unity? That it feels like you've lost your structural framework for how to live. Well, it requires a lot of trust, and that's a good place to be in, is that trust of the endless love and support that we're getting as we're trying to figure this out.
Right. I just thought about like a metaphor to throw in there was like, if you're not operating out of this essential sense of love and unity and eternity, then it's like building your house without a foundation or with a faulty foundation. But
Yes.
but really, it's not, because the foundation is there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
The foundation is perfect.
And when the house falls on that faulty, you rebuild. Big deal. Building is it's never done. You never. It's. There's a great paradox that it's all perfect, and yet we're here to improve it. It's like it's always in its perfect state. It all makes sense. It's all meant to be this way, supposed to be this way. If you can forgive yourself and just ease back a little, you can see that that's true. And we want to improve that perfection. Now that's hard for some people because it's paradoxical, but what else would we do here if it's all perfect? Would we just say, okay, we're done, we'll check out? And no, it's like, let's make it better.
Marketing.
Hmm?
Marketing.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I said, like I think for myself there are lots of cultural influences that lead me to doubt some of this at various times. And so the question for me is, okay, assuming I don't know the truth, I don't know reality, I don't know the ultimate answers. If I assume that you're right, what does my life look like? And what does it feel like? And what do I accomplish? And the answer is pretty good. right?
Yeah.
As opposed to believing the opposite. You know, sort of I'm born alone, I struggle for bread, I fight in the rat race, and I die. That
Yeah.
there's an empowering joy in assuming your perspective, whether or not you can prove it to your
Right.
own or
Well,
anyone else's
how is it
satisfaction.
provable to start with? How would you begin to prove any of this? It would be experiential in your own laboratory of experience. You know, what happens to me when I think this way? And what happens to me when I have this thought? And that's an immediate experiment that you can do all the time, constantly. You can, bring your worries to your bed at night and see how that feels. And you can wake up in the middle of the night and worry and see how that feels. And or you can have thoughts that that feel good, and test them out on the world and see who you run into that day, and what kind of things happen to you. And that's an experiment that is really fun, and I think that's where we gain our power, is when we can uh, be in control of our own thoughts and choose the ones that feel good, and those are ultimately the true ones, because it's all. I mean, so what it comes down with me is, um, it's, do I think that I can know everything in if I analyze it? Or is there more? Are there more dimensions? And of course, everybody knows that we've seen the Nova specials of the stars and everything. We know it's just vast and incredible. And are there going to be mistakes in the whole fabric? What, that doesn't make any sense. If there's even one thing out of place, it makes no sense. So it's just us to figure out what we're not seeing right, that we think there's something out of place or there's something wrong. That's just a wrong thought. So when we get to the right thought, which is it's all perfect, it's all, then we can start to adjust our own behavior and our own thoughts and say, oh, well, that means this. If everything's right, then that means I should do this. And if I do this, and then it all just falls into play, and that's where you get to the joy that you just talked about, and the ease with it all. And the worst thing that happens is you get tortured and die. Well, okay, that's pretty bad, I know. But on the other side of that is this eternal life that you could get reborn, and just like everything's great. And when you believe that, the fear goes away, and then fear, it's between love and fear. They don't happen at the same time. And
Right. I mean,
so,
there's people who get tortured and die, and then there's very many more of us who torture ourselves and kill ourselves out of
on a daily
on
basis.
a daily basis.
Yeah. And so, you can imagine, like, how you're to alleviate suffering, start with yourself and do everything you can to alleviate that suffering, because you have more power to alleviate suffering with your own self than anywhere else. And when you start there, then you become very powerful to have that same effect on the rest of you, which is everywhere else.
I love that. I think that's my affirmation bracelet to us: to alleviate suffering, start with myself.
Yeah, I like that too.
All right. Well, I think an hour and 9 minutes. I think I've gotten a gem that I'm gonna take with me for the rest of my life. To relieve suffering anywhere, I have to start with myself, because I don't like to do that. Like, I want to be more selfless than that. I want people to look at me and see what a good person I am, and so a little part of me doesn't want to be having so much fun, and doesn't want to be joyful, and doesn't want to be just a happy beacon of appreciation, because then it feels like I'm not selfless enough.
Mhm.
But
Too late.
too late. Thanks, I'm not. So,
Oh, good, Howie.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that.
it feels wonderful. So, thank you for doing this
Oh, you're
this
welcome.
session in
Thank
front
you,
of all these
Howie.
people.
Thank you.
So
Thank
Mark
you.
Leuchten, artist, who's you're a painter, but I would say I've known you for 2 decades now. Your main work of art is your own life.
Thank you.
And that's something that I admire and am inspired by on a daily basis. So
Thank you, Howie.
thanks for coming in and for springing this fabulous conversation on us. All right, Amnon, thank you for all of your everything. You're doing a good producer thing. You're trying to hurry me up. So
No, I'm telling you, go ahead.
go ahead. So we're still live. We're still on the air. So thank you everybody for watching and listening as always.
Thank
And see you next time. And as always, be well, my friends.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.